spend so much time in our life doing things that we absolutely hate because we feel like that's all that we're able to do. Like, oh, I'm good at it, so I might as well keep doing it. But it's like, why? Why are we doing that to ourselves?
Woo! Welcome one, welcome all to your space for everything empowerment. I am your host, Tariq Williams, aka Vision of Hope. But not only I am Vision of Hope, this is the we thing here. This is the we are Vision of Hope, your space, empowerment, authenticity, mindset, health. We're making it happen today. Let's get it. And I am not alone today. We have a special guest on the podcast. Leadership coach, author, the creator of the Dream Life Blueprint. We have with us today Alexis Carpenter.
Hey, oh my goodness. I'm so excited to be back with you.
Yes, we did this before about a year ago, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, we were making sure people understood that we only have right now. So we gotta
Right.
we gotta make it happen for sure.
Yeah.
The president is a gift. As cliche as that might sound, the president is a gift, right?
Amen.
So I really wanted to have you back on here, Alexis, because you are the author of a book that has recently launched,
Yeah.
Changing the Reflection, the Faces We Wear, and the Truths They Hide.
Yes.
Alexis, language is very important here on the podcast. So let me ask you, what's one word that truly describes and grabs the essence of the purpose of your book?
Yeah, I would say it's so hard to pick one word, but I think if I had to pick the word, it's going to be identity.
Okay.
Yeah.
And how does your book, like, what does it do to create identity? What does it do to serve that purpose for people? What do you mean by that?
Yeah. So really the book, when I created the outline and thought about it, it really takes people through the journey of me from a little child of really trying to find my place of belonging, right? And when we're children, our identity is really being shaped at that point. And that didn't work out very well for me. So then I moved into this next phase of being. So then I just started being what everybody wanted or expected me to be. And really it was whatever people curated for me, that character is who I adapted to and I morphed into to that version of Alexis. And then to this version now, which is the becoming, right? This now I am becoming me. I'm stepping into my authentic self and like my true self. And that's why it was important that I wrote the subtitle, The Faces We Wear and the Truths They Hide, because for so many of us, we do have these personas that aren't actually our identity. And when we can start stepping into our truth, then we can actually show the world who we truly are, and that's our identity. And so that's what I mean when I say that.
It's interesting because I love the title of the book. Once
Yeah.
again, Changing the Reflection,
Yeah.
the truths we wear and the faces they hide. Correct? Did I say that correctly?
The faces we wear and the truths they hide.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Okay, I got it. Okay, perfect. Um, because it does actually really speak on the identity piece. Why do you feel that people struggle with identity so much in society today?
Yeah. Well, I think again, I'll speak from my perspective. It really
Mhm.
was just my influence around me and what I knew and the way that I was I adapted to my environments and so thinking about myself and other people I'm sure can relate to this. My upbringing and beginning was really kind of being thrown into a world that was filled with drug addiction. And so my mom suffered from that. And so I went to a foster home and that
Mhm.
was the curation, I feel like, of like the beginning of my identity of who I thought that I was. And, from the outside perspective of, my mom suffering, thinking that maybe this was my fault. And then having a corrupt foster home was really fed into that, So for me, I thought that that was my truth. I didn't think that I was, able to speak up. I wasn't able to do because there was always a repercussion. There was always a consequence for something. And I think that people face that in their own way every single day, right? Think about schools. Our kids
Mm.
go to school and they're told what to do, to conformity. You have to sit here in class for 8 hours a day. And you need to do this, be quiet, and only speak when we tell you to speak. And so we are really like evolving into these individuals of other people's expectations. So we are essentially told to suppress how we naturally feel and go against our intuition. Thinking about my 11-year-old son who has ADHD, he needs to move all the time, right? Like he can't sit still, and that's it. It has nothing to do with his ability to learn or who he is, but he's told that that's not good behavior. That's bad behavior, and you need to sit in your seat, stay still, and be quiet. And for him, it's very hard to do that. So we are telling children, we're telling adults to go against what we naturally feel. And so I think that that in itself creates this identity shift. We put on these masks and these personas. Think of perfectionism for one. We want to get everything right. We want to be people pleasing. We want to do everything for everyone because we feel like that's going to build our worthiness or build on our value. But really, we're just suppressing us. And so, yeah, we might be providing things to other people, but at the end of the day, we're providing something that's not real.
I had so many thoughts just go through my mind right now, and I think what you just said is so powerful. I was talking to one of my friends the other day, and he was asking me about some advice.
Yeah.
And there was a moment where we were all kind of talking, and he asked me, like, what are your thoughts about what happened? Because he
Mhm.
didn't really say too much, right? And I
Yeah.
said, well, it depends on the perspective. Are you feeling forced to suppress how you feel right now?
Mm.
Or have you let it go? Because those are two different things. If you feel like you've been able to let it go, and that moment was your true reflection, you see what I did there? If that moment was your true reflection, if you actually let it go, that's one thing.
Yeah.
But if you're suppressing that and you're putting on a mask and hoping that's just going to get better at some point, then you're only really lying to yourself. So I think that's a really interesting perspective, especially when we talk about how then society makes us feel like we
Mm.
have to suppress the person who we are.
Yeah.
Wow.
I know it's really it's one of those things that it sounds so simple to just show up every day as yourself, but uh, you know, I find again for myself, I won't speak for anybody else, but the hardest thing for me was actually sitting with myself and
Mm.
like just in silence, not trying to develop, not trying to grow anywhere, not trying to build a career, not trying to be a mom, a wife, or any of the things that I am, but truly just sitting with myself and like feeling what I feel and allowing that to happen. And again, the whole suppression thing, I think we do that out of instinct. And sometimes we're not even conscious or aware that we're doing it, but it's the more that we put down, the more it's going to bubble up and come up later. That's why we hear of people having breakdowns and things like that. It's because we suppress so much and we think, oh, if I just let this one go and just kind of move on, maybe it'll get better. But it's like, are you truly, is that like okay, like I'm going to forgive whatever that was and I'm going to move on with my life because that's okay? Or am I just not speaking what I need to speak to actually release that? Or am I just holding that in my body? And I think the more that we can sit with ourselves and actually like become aware of who we are internally, feel our emotions, feel how our body reacts to certain situations, um, the healthier we'll become.
So let's talk about those moments where you were sitting with yourself in this emotional journey that you had. When you were sitting with yourself while writing this book,
Mhm.
and you're thinking about, and I'm assuming because unfortunately I haven't read the book yet, but I'm really excited to take this listen of it.
Yeah.
When you're sitting with yourself and you're writing your book and you're on this emotional journey, did it force you to reflect on some of those moments in the foster home or some of these different trials and tribulations? And we don't have to go into fully what, because the people here are going to read the book, but
Yeah. Yeah.
but take us there into that writing process a little bit as you're sitting with yourself and you're in a place where you're almost forcing yourself to really relive some of those masks. Um,
Yeah.
what was that like?
Yeah, it's I actually really love this question because the writing process for me was so unique. And when I would write, I would have a story in mind, and they were the whole book. Spoiler alert, the whole book is very deep. Like I'm not going to tell you what's like all in it, but every single story was something that there is a trial and then there is the triumph, right? And so in every single story that you read, you'll be like, oh my gosh, like the things that I've heard is like, you literally gutted me. Like I felt like I was there with you in that moment and I could physically feel your pain. Um, but then the beauty on the other side is, right, I'm sitting here able to speak about it. So the writing process for me was I would go in a room, I would turn on instrumental music, and I would close my eyes, and whatever came out, like I would have a story in mind. Like there's one in there about a salon. Like I got my hair cut, she cut my hair wrong. Like again, I could feel being that little girl. And it was like I've never experienced anything like this in my life, but I wasn't thinking of the words that I was writing. I just felt it, and whatever came out as like, and I mean, when I'm telling you, like my fingers were moving with the sounds and the rhythms of the music. And it was the most beautiful, and I like at the end, I'd be like, oh my gosh, like where did this even come from? And then I would read it. And it was almost like this true release. Like I was actually able to go back to that little version of me. And then I was able to write it down, but then I was able to read it and actually process it.
Wow.
Because again, when we're young, we don't, and I mean, maybe some people do, but for me, I wasn't able to process that. That was the things that I experienced were so big and so heavy that I don't even know that I would have had the capability to actually process that. So
Mm.
sitting here now, it's amazing how writing a book can truly heal you, or even just even if it's not writing a book, but it's like writing these stories, these real impactful moments in our life. And some can be trauma, some can be really exciting things that happen, but equal parts, it helps you actually realize and process and feel and sit with the things, and also identify some of the triggers that might come up with it.
Yeah.
um, so yeah, it was probably the most profound, beautiful for the first draft. And then you have to read it and you have to go through all of these things again. So the more that you write it, the more triggering it becomes. And you're kind of like,
Mm.
okay, I
Mm.
don't want to do this anymore. Like I give up. I'm over it. And I don't know how many times I wanted to throw in the towel because it got really, really hard to keep reliving that and keep remembering that pain and to feel the pain. Um, but there's some sort of release in the actual healing that is just so beautiful. And I think everybody, if you have an opportunity to write your story, however you do that, or just say the story and be able to kind of like reflect back on it, is such a gift to yourself.
Wow. The first thing I thought about was I wish we had almost like a video to see this writing process and what that looks like for you, because I think so often when we're writing and we're expressing ourselves or we are building a routine, we feel like it has to look like somebody else's.
Yes.
And the fact that you were able to make it your own makes it all the more special, all the more beautiful in that space. Like you created, I say, I don't, this isn't a joke, this is a fact. When I say that the podcast is your space for everything empowerment, but you were really able to create your own space of empowerment there while you were writing. And
Yeah.
I bring this up because it's so interesting that I was able to kind of make this connection with something that just happened to me personally. Literally, I had this conversation yesterday about suppression and letting go.
Hmm.
So let me ask you, would you say then before you wrote this book, you were in a space of suppression? And now that you've written the book and have read it a few times, you're now in a space of that you've been able to let go? Where would you say you're at now emotionally?
Oh my goodness, these questions are so good. Like, okay. So I would I would say I was in the acknowledgement phase. So I think, right, so we have suppression, we just bury it down, we don't think about it. Then there's the awareness phase, right? Like we really think about the awareness of something that has happened. A lot of people stop there. It just stops like, oh, I'm aware of it, right? But then the acknowledgement is really the feeling piece. So I would say that I was in between like the the awareness for some, and then the acknowledgement of like, okay, this is a reality, but what do I want my life to actually look like now? And so the thing that I was missing this whole time that the writing and the book actually gave me was that action piece. So we find ourselves in, again, the awareness is thinking about the things that have happened, writing it down, like what did I experience? The acknowledgement is like the feeling of it, and then saying, okay, how do I actually want this to look? And then the action of like where we actually make that happen. So I wasn't able to heal until I actually released it. So yeah, I was aware of it and I started to acknowledge it, but I didn't have the thought or the process of like, what do I want my life to look like now? Like, what do I want to do with these stories now that I know them, now that I acknowledge them? Like, what do I want to do with them?
Mm.
And for me, I was like, I want to release them. I want to heal that little version of me. I want little Alexis, who was a warrior, right? But it by no means, like, yes, these are sad stories. However, that little girl was a warrior, right? And
Oh,
she should
let's
be
go.
honored for that. And so that was for me really like, okay, the action is like, we're going to be strong. We're going to be brave. We're going to be courageous because we forget about those things as we get older and we don't think about that. We're like, oh, okay, those are there, but it's like, no, like the release comes in the action of using that. And there was so much power and authority in me speaking my truth and like just owning that. And I also gave so much power to a little girl that was voiceless her entire life. And so I think that's, if I hope that answers the question, but like really that's, yeah.
Not only does it answer the question, Alexis, I feel like you. So when we reflect on something, and it's a painful moment and our struggle, a lot of times we only sit in the hurt.
Yes.
And you sat in the hurt, but not only did you do that, once again, you gave power. You said that girl was a warrior. I think sometimes when we go through a particular trauma, we only focus on the hurt of the trauma and not realize the strength we had coming out of it and just being in that being there presently.
Yeah. Oh, well, I mean, like you have to be, right? If you're not strong, you didn't get through it. And if
Mm,
you got through it, you're strong. So it's like we can look at it and yes, we do have to acknowledge the pain, right? Like that's a very real thing. But
mm,
also acknowledge the other side of like how powerful are you to get through your darkest of days?
yeah.
Like the deepest things that you could go through, the traumas that you do experience, those give you strength. That's what resilience is, right? Like when you
Mm,
literally have nothing left to even stand up with, but you do it anyway.
yeah. Yeah. You're stronger than what you think you are, right? You're
Ah, for
stronger
sure.
than what you think you are.
Yeah.
And so you're writing this book and you're having this purpose and showing that this is my story of identity
Yeah.
and hoping that your story can inspire, encourage, uplift others.
Yeah.
What did it look like though in those moments while you're trying to discover and let go of that suppression, build up your identity? Those moments where you were like, I can't do this anymore. We all talk about imposter syndrome a bit, but I'm sure you mentioned that you had moments where you wanted to throw in the towel while you were writing this incredible book, and you were just like, probably, I can't do this anymore. There's too much going on. I'm too stressed. What am I gonna do? How did you handle those moments?
Yeah. Well, I had to sit with myself and be like, well, why are we so resistant?
Mm,
When I started writing the book, I don't think I actually knew how much I actually needed to release this and write the book. But the one thing I wanted to help people with was provide hope, right? Even if it was like a flicker of hope, it didn't matter what it was, but I wanted people to know that there's something that we can hold on to even in the darkest of times. And I had to keep bringing myself back there. Like, it's not about you, Alexis. This is about other people that are sitting where you were, that you've overcome this. Like, now, how can we use this for good? Because I'm a firm believer that we don't go through all of these trials for nothing. And
mm,
if I allow myself to not move forward in my purpose, which I fully believe is helping people come out of those dark moments and really bring them through that, the awareness, acknowledgement, and activation, like let's move forward. Um, but I feel like if I don't do that, then I'm doing such a disservice. And that little version, that little warrior who never gave up, it would have been for nothing. So I'm like, how can that version of me get through everything? And then me, when it gets hard, throw in the towel and say, no more, I'm not going to do it. Like I'm not going to honor
Mm,
the stories and the battles that I had to go through to get to where I am today and help somebody else.
yeah.
That would have been so selfish of me. And so I think it really was sitting with the discomfort and then saying, okay, we're going to do it anyway.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
That's that's amazing. That is so powerful because we all have those moments, right?
Yeah.
Where that imposter syndrome, that self-talk
Hmm.
creeps in and you're like, what am I doing? But being able to sit with yourself and recognize the importance of the work, the importance of letting go, the importance of the story of that little girl and all those stories and what they looked like
Yeah.
is gonna help a lot of other people change the reflection, right?
Yes.
Because and I mean this wholeheartedly because I think what you battled with is very relatable in that we all have some different moments where we feel like we're not good enough and we have to act like someone else.
Yeah. Oh gosh. Yeah.
As it pertains to the coaching side of what you do, Alexis, um, you're a leadership coach for women.
Yeah.
And, as a man, as a gentleman here, I'd like to understand a bit more because, I've understood the fact that sometimes I feel like women feel like their light has to be dimmed and that they can't grow out of whatever the situation might be and look down upon or what have you. So tell me, why is it so important for you to be a leadership coach for women and what it looks like to uplift women in their roles and beyond?
Yeah. Well, I think for me, I really think it is because I see more women dim their light and not use their voice. And I see a lot of men with a lot of confidence. And I know that that's not 100% true. Like, of course, there are men that don't have confidence and there are women that have confidence. But the majority of the people that I see, and myself being one of those, again, I have been in leadership for 15 plus years. And I've constantly seen these intelligent, smart women sit in rooms, boardrooms, executive meetings, and not speak because they're too scared that what they have to say is not going to be heard in the right way. They're going to sound stupid. It's not going to be received. They're going to get rejected. And then it's going to take away from their chances of moving up, or, their leadership team's going to think that they're not capable anymore. But I'm like, where did that come from? Right. And when we really think about it, and when I had to sit and think about like, where did all of these beliefs for me come from? It came from the little conversations that I had, like with my mom, where maybe I didn't do something right, or it came from my stepdad, where it
Mm,
was like I just wanted somebody to hear me, but my voice didn't feel validated. And so it's that authority, right? Like when you're in a room full of executives, you feel the authority in the room. You feel that there's power and presence in the room. And most of the time it's men, and that's not a bad thing. And so I don't want this to be taken as like, you know, I think men are in the room because they have that ability to stand in their power and know
mm,
that they have the authority.
mhm,
And I think the one thing that we as women forget to do is realize that we have so many allies within them. And instead of building those relationships and building that conversation around, hey, this is how I feel in a room. Like, I want to hear your experience. Like when you're in a room, how do you feel? And how do you actually feel that power and that authority when you're in the room to speak your mind and speak that one thing? Because listen, I could have one idea that in 6 months from now could save the entire company from crashing because there was one loophole that I saw. And if I didn't say anything, like I think for me too, it's an integrity thing. Cause I'm like, if
mhm,
I have an answer that I'm like, hey, I this. I see this in the future where it could jeopardize. But we don't have that. And it all starts, right? Like we can't lead other people until we can lead ourselves. And for women, we don't lead ourselves. We allow other people to lead us. We follow suit. We put these masks on, which and then are, again, that's not leadership. Leadership is me stepping into my power, my own story, and speaking my truth and saying, I'm going to do this anyway, and I'm going to show you how you can do this with your unique gifts.
Yeah.
People that don't have the confidence in standing up for themselves in the work that I've done has been with women is because there's something that they haven't fulfilled. They feel if we just keep going faster, if we keep doing more, we take on more, we never ask for help, we're going to bring so much value that somebody's eventually going to see us. But what that does is it causes chronic burnout. It causes, resentment. It causes, the inability, like your body physically breaking down. Like I've had 11 surgeries. And so, these stories that I'm talking about, like this was me. And this is why I want to help that other woman. Like when we come together as a collective, when we come together and say, hey, I don't have all the answers, but I have this one idea. Can we collaborate? Like I might come to you and be like, hey, I loved the way that you said this. This is what I'm struggling with. Do you have 10 minutes where we could just chat? So, maybe you could help me kind of overcome this. And then I would do something for you later. But it's like, we don't even have the courage enough to ask for help. And if
Mm.
for help, how are we leading? How are we doing any of the things that we say? And that's why we have to really bring it back. We have to bring it back to the awareness. We have to bring it back to the acknowledgement. And then we actually need to move forward in a new plan, not in the same repeated patterns of brokenness. And so my favorite thing in this big download that I had the other day was,
Mhm.
the breakthrough really does happen in the brokenness. And so if we can stop looking at that as a weakness and say like, oh my gosh, that's my strength. I'm starting from ground zero. Like we're rebuilding. I can rebuild whatever I want,
Mhm.
instead of thinking like I'm so broken, I'm in pieces, I can't do anything. No, we can rebuild and we can make it bigger, we can make it better, and we can make it aware, we can make it healed, we can make it you. And so that's really, really why I do the work.
Changing the reflection.
Yeah.
Absolutely. You made me think of a couple different things there while you were speaking, and so powerful, so much value. I appreciate you. Um, the first thing was I did a podcast episode a while back, and that suppression of being in different meetings and not being able to talk about or give the value that that you need to state. I think in a lot of capacities, a lot of people have felt that way.
Yeah.
And one of the big things that I talked about on this podcast episode a while ago was the right time to speak up for yourself, whatever that might look like, whatever that situation is.
Mhm.
And so I said, the right time to speak up for yourself, there's two times. The best time to speak up for yourself is yesterday.
Yes.
The second best time is now today. So we gotta find our voice. It's so important. To once again, you ended that being you piece, right? And whatever that may look like. And you just talk about the brokenness. You know, part of my broken past speaks to my blindness when I thought my life, I didn't know what it was gonna look like, right? But I'm so adamant in discussing the fact that my blindness does not define me,
Mm.
but it is a part of my life now. I was able to grow through that. It doesn't define me, and it is a part of my life. And so, what it was like to learn and grow from those experiences. And it sounds like that's what you're doing with your coaching and with your book.
Yeah. Yeah, really it does. But like they have to go through that, three-phase process. But and
Mhm.
also like what is it that you want out of life, right? Then there's like the opposite side of it too. It's like we don't a lot we spend so much time in our life doing things that we absolutely hate because we feel like that's all that we're able to do. Like, oh, I'm good at it, so I might as well keep doing it. But it's like, why are we doing that to ourselves? And I
Mhm.
think that that's not just like a woman thing, like that's an everybody thing. so many conversations that I have, with people, like I see people staying in 25-year careers and then, they get laid off and it's like, well, I
What
think
is
now I'm going to go do that thing. I'm going to go change. Like, I'm going to go be a public speaker because that's what I've wanted to do my whole life. And it's like, you waited 25 years and for, a catastrophic event in your life to happen before you decided to do that. And so I'm like, if we can start learning now versus waiting for that, right? Like, if you think back about, before your blindness, how did you show up in your day to day? Like, what was that like?
Ooh, wow, wow, great question. Um, I'd like to. It was high school, right? So it was high school, but I'd like to think that I thought of myself as being wanting to fit in.
Yeah.
And when I became blind, I was like, oh, there's no way I can.
Mm, yeah.
So, you know, because and when you're in high school, there's I mean, it's an interesting space, right? So I can't sit here and lie to you and be like, oh, I knew exactly who I was and I had it down. I was 15, right? But I wanted to fit in with everybody else because I thought my personality wasn't enough. And then when I became blind, I was like, oh, I'm 100% not enough.
Mm,
Um, so I think it's important to find ways to lift people up through those situations and understand that we have to continue learning about who we are as people.
yeah. And now thinking about the person that you are today, I feel like, and this is my outside perception of you, and you can tell me if I'm way off,
Yeah.
but the person that I see you showing up as today says, I'm enough. I show up as me. I make my own spaces. I bring people into my spaces. I'm not really seeking that outside. Of course, we all do seek outside validation, right? Like that's a normal thing. But like you seem like somebody who brings people in now versus searching like just all the places for your belonging. And I don't know if that's true, but this is the perception that I get when I see you. So you went from one place to your brokenness to the other side of creating your own space of belonging, not just for you, but for other people.
Alexis, you can make me cry on my own podcast, Alexis. That's crazy.
Oh,
That's the goal, right? That's the goal. The fact that you could see that in me is I don't know what to say, but it makes me internally feel like, wow, I'm doing the thing. So one that's the goal. The fact that I'm actually doing that really hit home for a moment there. But when I reflect, Alexis, I really think uh, the best way I could put it is that when I became blind, I was satisfied with who I was because I just was, the blind kid at the school who was just doing whatever, right? And I became satisfied with that. I was satisfied with who I was, but I wasn't proud of the person that I was. After I've gone along my journey quite a bit and be able to create my own mindset, step into my power, figure out who Tariq really is, and then be able to be that, I would say I couldn't be more proud of the person that I am, but I'm not satisfied
hmm.
because now I know what my potential is and
Yeah,
I want to go get it.
there you go. And that's your action, right? I love that. Okay, well, you just went through the whole awareness, acknowledgement, activation. It's so, again, right? Like it's beautiful. And you do it. You're doing it every day. So I'm proud of you. So I'm going to just say that. And I think that that's such a beautiful thing. Um, yeah. And being proud of yourself that is next level self-love and appreciation. So good for you.
I appreciate you. I appreciate you. You turned the tables on me there a little bit, but 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 once again, these are the goals, right? And so, what it looks like for you, what it looks like for the women you serve to be able to step into that. So, as someone from the outside looking in, and you just did it for me, right? But what does it look like to be an ally? And let me explain a little bit. So, Mel Robbins, I'm not throwing any shade, okay? Mel Robbins is a fantastic individual. That has some powerful quotes, great show, but she has something that went viral a couple years ago that it kind of threw me a little bit. Um, because she says that no one's coming. No one's coming to do the work for you. No one's coming to write the business plan for you. There, we're all good. I'm with you, Mel. But then no one's coming to believe in you. No one's coming to support you. No one's coming to tell you like, "Hey, come on, you can do this." And I'm like, and I'm paraphrasing a little bit there, so please. But in that moment, I was like, if you don't have anybody around you that's gonna believe in you got to start surrounding yourself with some different people. I'm sorry. Like, I just think that's so important to have a coach, a mentor, a friend, a family member. You got to surround yourself with some people like that who are going to believe in you. And if not, I don't know what we're doing here. So,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I can agree with that for sure. No, you have to be in circles with people. Otherwise, we can't grow. It's hard to grow if you don't have that. And
so someone on the outside looking in, right? How does it look for me or anyone else to be like, hey, to show up for someone else, to that leader that feels suppressed, that person that's working on trying to change the reflection but struggling with it, that person, that friend that's like that's wearing that mask, and from the outside looking in, that's not really them, but you don't really do too much about it. What do you recommend for the listeners that are going through it? And what do you recommend for the listeners that are on the outside looking in?
yeah. Oh my goodness. Okay. We'll start with the outsider looking in because I think this is where it can get tricky. So I think that the outsider should be a support as, hey, if you ever want to talk like about anything, I'm here for you. You may be struggling and you may not be. Here's maybe a short snippet of like what I'm seeing from the outside. It looks like you're struggling when you're, going through this. And, if there's any way that I can support you, I'd love to support you. And if not, and you just want to talk, or you don't want to talk and you just want somebody to sit with you, I'll be here for you.
Mhm.
Because the one thing that we don't want to do is be the hero fixer. And when it comes to people that we love and support, we tend to want to fix them. And what that creates, especially in leadership, is dependency. And
Mm,
people can't find themselves if they don't have independence. So it's a tricky dance because until somebody's like in that awareness, acknowledgement, activation phase, they are in a place of maybe just kind of like, I just hurt and I don't know what to do. I'm just broken and I can't speak for myself. I'm burnt out, but I can't stop. So, in their mind, this is what's happening. From the outside, you see them struggling. You want to support them. And the best way that you can support sometimes is just asking questions. Like, I just asked you, what, two or three questions to bring you through your own journey. I wasn't telling you anything of like how you felt or what you should feel or how you could get to the next phase. I was just one, asking you questions. And then two, I reflected what I see from the outside perspective. That is what I would do with anybody. So if that's something that you can take, then you can do that. And you can start with small questions, how are you today? If you get the generic, oh, I'm good. Okay. How are you really today? People are always thrown off by that. And it's like when you go that follow-up question and say, how are you really? People are like, oh, okay, this person actually cares. It's not just like a standard, like, oh, hey, how are you? How's the weather today? It's like a genuine question. So then people feel a little bit more comfortable. And so what we're doing in the, I guess the psychology of it is we're building that connection. We are building trust and safety for that space. Like you have a very safe space. When we have conversations, I know that I can show up as me. I know that I can open up to you. I know that I can speak like the things that I need to speak, and it's going to be received and it's going to be respected. And I also know that you'll challenge me, which I love too. So that creates a lot of trust within the circle of our communication. And so that's really what we're trying to do with anybody. So if it's maybe a newer relationship, then ask just like the light questions to build that connection so that they can feel like, hey, this person's not judging me. Like they're not just trying to, brain dump of all the things that I should be doing or could be doing. And it's just more of a compassionate, I'm going to sit here and just give you space to talk if you need to, and just be here if you don't, because I want you to feel like you have somebody.
Mm.
Um, if you are on the other side and you are the person in it,
Yes.
I think the first thing that we have to do as an individual is be willing to sit in our stillness. And this is the hardest part of the whole thing. Um, and that's because a lot of times we look in the mirror and we don't like what we see.
Mm.
But if we could take that one step further and say, what is it about this reflection that I don't like? Is it I don't like that I lie to myself when I say yes to others? Is it I feel like a child again, like I don't have a voice? Is it I don't want to ask for help because that seems like weakness? Is it the emotion that you're feeling? Oh, it makes my body feel cringy. I don't like feeling sad. I don't like feeling grief. I don't like feeling anger. Like I need to suppress that. Like what is it about that moment that you don't like? And so here's a challenge that I actually started doing with myself because I used to have the worst mirror talk. I'd look in the mirror and I would pick out at least 10 things within less than 60 seconds. And
Wow.
so something that I started doing with myself is set a timer for 5 minutes. If you don't have 5 minutes, set a 60-second timer, 2-minute timer, whatever it is. Like no excuses, at least 1 minute. Okay. And you have to look at yourself in the mirror. And in that minute, you either say really great things like, I really love the way my eyes look today. Or, oh, look at these laugh wrinkles in my eyes. Or my hair has gotten so long. If you can't say any of that, just be silent. Your
Mm.
mind will think things that you would typically say to yourself, but don't speak them out loud because the moment that you speak them out loud is when they have power.
Mm.
Silence those thoughts by not saying what you're feeling, or not, sorry, not what you're feeling, what you're thinking. And you're just acknowledging and looking at yourself and feeling, okay? Like this feels uncomfortable. This makes my stomach hurt. I want to cry when I look at myself. I feel so much anger when I look at myself. Those are the types of things that we need to reflect to ourselves so that we can work through them. And that's the truth and the honesty of like what we are as human beings. And when you can start doing that, that actually starts to build up the trust in yourself that you can then go deeper and look at the other layers. I can look at that trauma. I can look at the reason why I didn't get the promotion and not have judgment towards that other person. I can see where I've been saying yes and I needed to say no. I can see where I have resentment for my significant other, but I haven't been asking for the help, and that's why I haven't gotten the help. Um, there's just so many stories that we create within our own minds and our bodies, and there are so many things that we don't allow ourselves to feel as an individual who is on the brink of trying to get to that breakthrough, but you just don't let yourself go a little bit further. Here's one more practice. So I love
Yeah,
little
please.
tactical tools that we can have.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
the last thing is a gratitude practice. And if you can do 10 things of gratitude every single day, and I always hear that's too hard. I can only think of three. Here's less than 60 seconds. I'm grateful for the coffee that I had this morning. I'm grateful for this podcast. I'm grateful for my family. I'm grateful for my house. I'm grateful that I had an amazing lunch. I'm grateful for the chilly weather and I get to have hot cocoa with my kids later. I'm grateful that my kids were laughing this morning. I'm grateful that the bus came on time. I'm grateful that I got to shower, and I'm grateful that Let's see, one more thing. Um, I'm grateful that I got to speak my truth. That's 10 things in less than 60 seconds. Now, the power in this, okay, if we write those down, if we take it one step further and we write down 10 things every single day, in 30 days, you'll have 300 things that you are grateful for. In 90 days, you'll have 900 things that you are grateful for. In 365 days, you will have 3,650 things that you are grateful for in 1 year. The power in having gratitude and the in looking at that and reflecting at it and being able to open a journal and say, I have 3,600 things that I was grateful for this year will trump any negative thoughts that you have over and over and over and over again. Because if you think about it, you might have 10 negative thoughts, but if you have 10 positive thoughts that you're thinking about consciously, it can be for the grass being green, it can be for the grass being brown. It doesn't matter what you're grateful for. It's just being aware of the little things that we take for granted every single day. And the power in that is just out of this world. It's really hard to think of all the negatives when you're purposefully thinking about the positive.
Mm,
Yeah.
mm. Come on now. Come on now. We overlook our blessings so often, it's ridiculous, right? Like it's have gratitude for them, like you were saying, embrace them. Like so incredible. I hope I hope you all were able to really get some start putting these things into practice for sure. Alexis, that was so powerful. And I think that there are a lot of people here that you're helping. And I want to thank you for showing up and continue to be your authentic self and whatever that looks like each day because you this world needs you.
Oh, thank you, Tariq. They need you too. Again, it's platforms like this that I even get to speak, and
Yeah,
it just shows the testament to your heart and the way that you want to serve people and provide value and the way that you show up. And I'm so grateful that you do because you make this world a better place.
I appreciate you, Alexis. After hearing you say all that, you know, one real quick, one of my big quotes that I say is people always say glass half full, glass half empty. I'm like, bro, you have a glass. What are you talking about here? Like,
Yeah.
you have the ability to pour in. So, who cares if it's half full or half empty? You have the ability to pour into it.
Yes. Oh,
So, let's make it happen. Alexis, you've delivered in such a big way, such a special way today. You've truly enhanced this space. And, you know, I tell you what, it's a space of empowerment, but you, gosh, I appreciate you so much. Um, you once again, we talked about the Dream Life Blueprint. We've talked about your book. Where can people find your book? How can people get in touch with the Dream Life Blueprint? Tell us about what you're doing. Because right now, they're like, how do I get a hold of Alexis?
yes.
Let us know.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Well, you can buy the book anywhere that like Amazon, Barnes and Noble, all of like the big retailers. And you can also reach out to me on either LinkedIn, Instagram, or Facebook, which is Alexis M. Carpenter on pretty much everything. That's even my website. So you can go there and you can find stuff on my book. I actually am wrapping up a book club that we did on it. And yeah, ton of free resources. But if you like, again, the master class is on Monday. It's all about like what is your desire? What do you want your life to look like? And then we map it out. You get a 90-day roadmap to bring you right there, right? We're going through all the things that we're talking about. Um,
And
so
so
yeah,
what's the date of the masterclass?
11/11.
So 11/11. Okay. So this podcast episode comes out on 11/10. So so listen and then go make sure you go check out Alexis's masterclass for sure. I'm sorry, continue.
Yeah, no, and I mean that's again, there's a 7-day breakthrough challenge. Like, if you just want little prompts to start thinking about different things and like how can I start reflecting in my life? Do that. Again, it's free. Like these are resources I want for you because I know that if you even have a little bit of help, it's going to bring you a long way. And it
Mm,
all starts with one thought. It all starts with one action. And just acknowledging like you are who you are today, but that doesn't have to be your tomorrow. You have the
mm.
power in you to change everything. And
It's
that's why
already it's
changing the
already
reflection.
here.
Yeah, it's right there inside of you.
Let's go. Let's go.
Yeah.
Um Alexis, this has been amazing. As you know, once again, language super important to the Speak Your Vision podcast. Um, I want to go back to the book before we end. Oh, and people, real quick, before we go back to the book, people can buy the book from you
Yeah,
and you'll sign it, right?
I will. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I'll put a little note in there too. Yes, I think I forget to say that. So just if you want a version of that, you can just DM me on Instagram, Alexis M Carpenter. M is in Mary Carpenter.
Okay. Okay. I mean, I want the signed copy. So,
Yeah, I'll send.
for sure. Gosh. Okay. So once again, everybody, check out the book, check out the Breakthrough Challenge. If you're here on 1110, go to the masterclass, learn everything from Alexis because you felt the power today. All right, you felt it. Let's keep this going. Before we go though, once again, language very important to the podcast. We talk about the suppression. We talk about the letting go. Um, the trials and tribulations that you went through in the book and writing the book, reliving it. Alexis, the first time you received the book and you held the finished copy, how did you feel in one word?
Ah, I'm like, how did I feel? I'm like, I felt proud. I think that was the first time I ever felt proud of myself for anything. And it was the most beautiful moment. Yeah.
You know, when I think about that feeling, and if there was so many great things said in this podcast today, but you listening, I want you to know that that feeling of proudness, you deserve that too.
Yeah.
I think so often we think that we don't. And if anything else, if they've taken, if you've taken nothing from this podcast episode today, you deserve to be proud of you.
100%.
And the book, once again, changing the reflection. I want to be clear about this. Not proud of the person that society's telling you to be. Proud of the person you are.
Yeah. All the pieces.
Oh, let's go. Let's go. Uh, Alexis, this was such a special space today. I appreciate you so much. Thank you so much for joining the podcast. Any final words for the listeners?
Yeah. I'm like, okay, well, it's coming to me again. So I feel like I just need to repeat what I said last time was that again, in every single moment we think about, you could think about I'll do that tomorrow, but we don't know if we have tomorrow. We only have the right now. And that is something that I stand by. And it's so important that we live by that. Live today as if tomorrow wasn't even a thought. Live today for your tomorrow. What is that tomorrow that you keep talking about? Do that today.
Mm. Let's get it. Let's get it. Alexis, thank you so much for being here with us today. Amazing conversation. Um, Once again, my name's Tariq Williams, your problem solving coach. We give clarity, we give direction. Check out the Black Friday offers and what we got going on in terms of the Recognize Your Vision coaching program, the one-on-one coaching. We're going to make it happen. We're going to win in 2025. But how do we win in 2025? We start right now. Let's get it. Alexis, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Not only I am Vision of Hope, but we are Vision of Hope.